Alright, all you DIYers, this is the second to last episode of our dry bar series, and today I'm going to show you how I made these shaker style drawer fronts. But first, here's a quick recap of what we've done so far. We started off by demoing an old closet in our dining room. Then we got the carcass built and the face frames made. We then painted the carcass, and let's be clear, by we I mean Lauren. We then built and finished the dry bar countertop, and then we rehabbed and refinished the dry bar countertop. I then built all the drawers and installed all the drawer slides. And now we are finally ready to build the drawer fronts, so let's get to it. All the other cabinetry throughout the house uses shaker style drawer fronts, from the kitchen and bathrooms to the entertainment center. So we wanted this dry bar to look like it was an original piece to the house, so we decided to mimic that look for the dry bar cabinets. The drawer fronts themselves will use rail and style construction, and for the thicker frame part I'm using 5/8 inch poplar, and for the interior panel I'm using a utility panel.
Alright, so I got all the pieces cut that we're going to need for all of these door frames. So what we're doing is this rail and style design for the shaker cabinet. So basically you're going to cut 4 pieces. You're going to have 2 top and bottom pieces. Those are going to be your rails. And you're going to have 2 side pieces. Those are going to be your stiles. The way this works is all of the pieces will have a dado cut roughly in the middle. You can kind of offset it if you have really thick cabinets. All of mine are 5/8 inch material, so I'm just putting it right in the middle. So you're gonna put that dado in all pieces, and then on the rails, you're actually gonna cut a tongue that is gonna go inside the stiles, and it will basically make a frame that has a groove through the whole thing, like that. And then whenever you cut your panel out to go in the middle, it is actually nested in all of that. You wind up gluing your stiles and your rails together, but you don't actually put glue on the whole panel. That way you can allow it to swell and shrink with the changing of the seasons. So I've set up my table saw and my router to help with this. So I'm gonna use the table saw to cut the dado in all of the pieces, and then I'm gonna use the router to cut the tongue on the rails.
Alright, so here's a quick tip. I needed the groove to be 1/8 inch thick or slightly over because that was the thickness of my utility panel. However, I had a thin curved blade on my table saw. So rather than moving the fence multiple times just for one piece of wood, I went ahead and set the fence up to where it would make a cut slightly off center in the piece of wood, and then I would make one pass, flip the piece of wood 180 degrees, make a second pass, and the combination of the two would be slightly over 1/8 inch thick. And then I never had to move the table saw fence. I then moved over to the router table where I cut all the tongues on the rails of the rail and style construction. Normally when you're making mission style doors, the tongues are always cut on the rails of the horizontal pieces. However, if you're cutting your tongues like I am here because I don't have a tongue and groove router bit set, I would highly recommend whatever your shorter pieces are to be the pieces that you run through the router bit. This is because having a really long piece will give you less control of that piece as you're pushing it through, so having something short gives you better control as you're cutting that piece. And one more quick tip, whenever you're running something through the router, if you put a little piece of scrap wood on the back end, this will help prevent any tear out as you finish up that piece. I then cleaned up all these pieces using a chisel from all the little splinters that were left from the router, and then I broke down the utility panel into all the pieces that I would need for the centers of the drawer fronts. The assembly really cannot get any easier for these things. You just put a little glue on the tongues that you made, and then you insert the panel in the middle of all the frame pieces, and then push it all together and get a good clamp on it. after I took these out of the clamps, I just used a chisel to clean up all the dried glue that had squeezed out. When you do clamp these up and that glue squeezes out, if you can avoid wiping it off with a towel or anything, that'll help the cleanup process, because when you do wipe it off, you kind of smear it into the grains of the wood, and then it dries and it's deep into the wood, and so you got to really sand it out well to get that glue out. Otherwise, if you stain it rather than painting it, it'll actually leave a discoloration. I then moved over to the router table, where I gave all of the drawer and cabinet fronts a small roundover on all of the edges. By doing this, it'll give the drawer fronts a kind of a soft appearance or a soft edge against the cabinet by kind of creating that shadow line, versus if you had a nice crisp sharp edge, it's going to be very exposing of any sins of the cabinet front. If it's not straight and perfectly flat up against that carcass, it's going to show a little shadow here or there. But by putting this roundover, you'll see that shadow line throughout the entire drawer front, and so it should appear nice and soft and everything look like it's all straight and perfect. Now, after I had these all sanded down, I had them painted professionally. And by professionally, I mean by my wife, because I don't paint. But now they're all finished, and man, they look so good, it is time to install them. So I migrated inside to the dining room, where I went ahead and installed all the handles and the door fronts on all the drawers. So if you're subscribed to the channel, you probably saw in the community tab we had a post recently that talked about a life event that has kind of made it challenging to get some of these videos edited and out in a decent time. But we're back in the saddle, we're getting these videos edited, and we do have one more of this dry bar series. It's actually showing you the details of the cabinets that go up above the dry bar to complement it. And that video should be out very soon, so subscribe to the channel so you'll get the notification. And until next time, take a chance and make something.